Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about an aspect that's coming up in July. It's a little bit further down the track, 15th or the 16th here in Australia, but it's a big one, and that is the conjunction of Mars and Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. Now, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people talking about that, coming up. If they're not already. But I guess I just wanted to give you a little bit of my take on that. And as I've been thinking about this video and what I want to discuss, I just keep getting that image of there's a meme with Thor and he goes, but is it though? And so, yeah, I guess I just do want to give you a few different ideas. I've been doing astrology now for 20 years. So a lot of my takes and interpretations may be a little bit different to the general social media echo chambers. Reason being, I've just seen things play out in so many different ways with literally thousands of people at this point. So the intention of this video is to give you the heads up to in advance to give you some tips and advice on how to work with this energy more constructively. So, shit doesn't blow up in your face kind of thing. And this is basically what I do in the Golden Circle for my members every single month. Yesterday, I released the material for July. So if you do like these kind of videos that I put here on YouTube, which are refined, maybe not refined, but hold back a bit. That's all in the Golden Circle. And so there's 5 videos, usually 5 every month, a monthly overview. I go through all the weekly aspects of the month. And basically, it's just sort of weather forecasting, but how to use the weather to your advantage, how things may play out, how things may feel, a little bit of collective themes, but for the most part, depending on, what's going on, it's, what you can do with this astrology. We also do a chart of a member each month. So how the aspects of the month are going to play out. So it's like a little reading for a member as well. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I'll put a link in the description box below where you can find more information. I think you can join for like $18 a month, which is Australian. So if you're in other parts of the world, it'll actually be a lot cheaper for you. And of course, there is the annual option. I think that saves you about nearly 30% off the bat. So it'd be awesome to see you there. And yeah, all right. Also too, I haven't released the details yet, but I'm going to be doing a Neptune in Aries preview webinar. So in 2025, we're going to have the entrance of Neptune into Aries. Of course, it will retrograde back into Pisces, but we're going to be introduced to a 14-year cycle next year. And I'm really looking forward to diving into that sort of concept of the baptism by fire. It's going to be a big one. So once that is released, I'll be sure to let you know. I've also just checked my calendar and preparing for July, and I actually have appointments for readings. So if you do want to take advantage of me doing this for a really long time, jump in, and I'd love to see you in person looking at your astrology, or in person on Zoom, of course. Alrighty, let's get back to the month of July and this big aspect. So as I already kind of touched on, my intention is to give you, I don't know if I want to go so far as to say a masterclass on Algol, but at least for the most part, to give you another angle of the way that this fixed star can work. That's not all bad, okay? Because I don't believe she is, as long as you can work with that energy in an effective way. So, where to start? So many things. All right. So, as I mentioned already, I think I mentioned it already, we do have a Mars-Uranus conjunction that occurs every 2 years. So, it's not really a new energy. What makes this particular conjunction a little unique? Firstly, it's going to be the last one we have in Taurus for our lifetimes. And this one also occurs exact on a fixed star called Caput Algol. So that which is at 26 degrees of Taurus. And so in order, like we do with a lot of our astrological transits, is what happened last time we had the same or a similar influence. And so the last time Uranus conjoined, Mars and Uranus conjoined on this fixed star was in the month of March of 1942. So that was the Second World War, in the thick of that. And I looked on Wikipedia just to get a little bit of, like I sort of knew in my mind, but a little bit of historical context of what happened back then. And then, of course, how that relates to now. And I think it was Mark Twain that said, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. So with that idea in mind, let's have a look at some of the highlights from Wikipedia in the early part of March of 1942. So firstly, we had a UN declaration took place. So basically the idea of that is, very angels and demons and apocalyptica sort of stuff, where let's get the good countries allied and against the bad guys. And so we had a whole bunch of countries sign a UN declaration, and what we know today as that organization, whatever you think of it now, began. And so on that side of the coin, we had the UN started, obviously with great intentions in the beginning, hopefully. And then what also was happening at the time in Germany, a conference was taking place where the concept of the final solution was developed. Okay. In other parts of the world, in the Southern Hemisphere near me, although I wasn't born at this point in time, New Zealand and Australia declared war on Thailand. And the name of Thailand at that time wasn't Thailand, and it does escape me for the time. I can see it in my mind, but I just can't get it to roll off the tongue. Another event that happened in March of 1942 was the first, mass transportation of Jewish people into Auschwitz happened. So obviously we can start to see the rhyming of these similar themes collectively, war, anti-Semitism, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously I don't have to spell that one out. So collectively, if we don't learn from history, we are destined to repeat it. Now, when I get on social media, I see a lot of people are losing their heads, literally. Well, not literally, but I see some of the protesting. I see some people who are fired up about topics, for the most part, they have very little knowledge of. And so this is the energy of Algol being fired up. As I record this video, Algol is sitting at 25 degrees of Taurus. So she, Uranus is, 1 degree applying to this fixed star. So it's very active right now. And there's a volatility, there's an anger, there is rage. Okay, that's a big keyword, I guess, for Algol is rage. That kind of rage where it comes from the pit of your being and you have no idea where that came from, like a white rage, like losing your temper, losing your head type of energy. Personally, obviously, in the collective, this is not, on a personal level, rather, this is, there is some benefit, I guess, to losing your mind every now and then, or, flying off the handle, going off your brain, whatever you want to call it, in terms of losing one's temper. There's a part of society, there's ideas that talks about, how anger is, if we see a kid or a child get angry, we sort of don't like it. We don't have a very good relationship with anger. But anger is very necessary. It's the key is finding healthy outlets for that anger. And that's the secret to working with Algol. So if you do have a planet in your birth chart, we all have 26 degrees of Taurus somewhere in our charts, but whether we have a planet or an angle or something significant on Algol, obviously that energy is going to be more obvious. So Algol, out of all the fixed stars in astrology, by far does have the most notorious of reputations. When we look at some of the translations of what Kaput Algol means, we've got sort of the head of the ghoul, head of Satan, pile-ups of corpses. So there's certainly, it's not a fairy tale romance kind of star. And so Kaput Algol is a binary star, and so she changes as well. So she eclipses herself every couple of days. So there is that sort of blinking eye element to it, like being watched. Yeah, I'll leave that one there. The archetypes that we have of Algol is, the Medusa's head, and it really doesn't matter what law, as in LORE, what sort of philosophy or cosmology that you're looking at. There's nowhere in any of the literature that has this Algol character in it where there's discussion of a body. So everything's just about this headless creature. So it is very much about the idea of capitation being sort of separate from the body. Okay, so when you do go into a fit of rage, or someone goes into a fit of anger, or if you've ever been on the receiving end of that, it's almost like the person is totally separated from their body. And this can happen, obviously, when we're in times of immense stress, where we are in that form of, what's the word, metaphorical capitation. So where you're taking action that makes no logical sense, where you are sort of disconnected from your faculties in a way. There's this lack of mental or rational, there's no let's think about this. It's totally instinctually driven. It's totally berserker type of energy. So it's very, very, very primordial, I guess, that basal level. You have no idea where it comes from. And in some ways, it's almost like this berserker energy. So the Viking berserker, if you're familiar with what that is, where the berserkers would get themselves into a fit of or a state of what's the word, like almost a trance-like state where they just sort of filled with endorphins, and they're filled with adrenaline, and they can just go into a rage. It's probably not dissimilar to what happened on October 7 in terms of the perpetrators. I won't say that H word just in case, but yeah, just sort of out of their body, out of their mental faculty, out of reason. So obviously, I could talk about this for a long time, but the point being is that there is a very negative and a very violent energy to this. So, there is, there are ways in which we can work with this energy really positively, despite all its negative connotations. And so this sort of energy is very female. Like, she is a female star, a feminine star. And so there is this idea of this deep feminine rage that comes through with this star, with this energy. And I think we're kind of seeing that. I think they call her Karen. So there is this sort of primordial, this uncivilized, vengeful, rageful, feminine energy that's being activated collectively right now. And so when you have a planet, we're all going to be experiencing Mars-Uranus coming up to this in July. Anything that's sort of, anything that is not chaos, anything that is not rational, anything that is got to do with order or structure or protocol, it feels very foreign to it. And this is where the idea of what's going on collectively is kind of gaining momentum, because they thrive in the chaos. They don't want order. They don't want structure. They don't want civil, things to be civil. It's this idea of the chaos being is thriving. And so on the personal level, there's this invitation with Algol that at some level, and I know a lot of people think that this is a dirty word, but I mean, use your imagination when anyone kind of gets triggered by things. It's it's an invitation this month to go tribal in some way, shape, or form, but in a positive way. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And this is where we can Mars Uranus has the potential to take action and crack open, wide open, a real deep passion within you. And that's where we can facilitate that rage, where we can facilitate that primordial deep anger that sometimes comes up within us. And find a way where we can activate a healthy outlet of this seemingly separation of body and spirit. And so some examples of how you can do this is many moons ago, I needed therapy. Well, I didn't need it, but I sort of fell into it and realized, oh, okay, I've got a few things I could take a look at. This was 20 years ago, I suppose. And one of the um, uh, therapies, I guess, or the tools that I was instructed to do. I mean, what's really popular now is like breathing, getting into your body. I'm like, oh, whatever. If that works for you, that's great. But for me, I realized I needed to outlet a lot of anger because I was having trouble expressing it, and still do. I have a Libra moon. So um, what I was instructed to do was when I'm on the freeway, the M2 in Sydney, if you're familiar with that road, where I was at the time, it could be middle of the night, driving along and just windows down and just scream. Just this, I'd probably be waking all the nocturnal animals, but anyway, screaming and just kind of letting out something that was within you. And that was really, really therapeutic for me. And, I don't really feel the need to do it a great deal these days, but sometimes it can be helpful. And you're doing it in a very private way. You're doing it in a way that's not affecting anybody. And no one can see you, so you don't look kind of crazy. Yeah, so it was just this little thing that I used to do. But what really works for me is two things. Well, actually, it's kind of one thing with two different manifestations, and that's heavy metal. So I've always been a massive listener, fan, enthusiast of heavy metal music on various genres, and of course, powerlifting. So, gaining weight, getting strong, cutting weight, um, and getting lean. So, and to be able to just sort of unleash that monster and overcome an obstacle, pick up something heavy and see what you can do. It's kind of unleashing the monster within in a very healthy way. The 12th house is ruled by Taurus for me. So, it is this other side that I have the capacity to unleash. So, the idea of unleashing that inner monster. And, that really comes to me through the work of Jordan Peterson, of which I'm quite a fan. And he has 26 degrees. I think it's 26, maybe it's 23, but he has his ascendant on Algol. And so one of his theories, particularly in relationship to young men, but I mean, it can certainly apply to women as well, is the capacity to unleash that monster within, but it's controlling it, knowing when to rein it in, knowing when to unleash it, and in the appropriate ways and in the appropriate manner is what truly makes you powerful. Being passive or being harmless is you're not doing anyone any favors, yeah, in that capacity. So there's always a cost with that as well. If you don't unleash that monster, in some ways it will just come back and bite you. So this month in July, this is sort of the midway point of the month. So as we move into July, you might even start to think, okay, well, what action can I take that can help me work with some anger issues? Who's getting under your skin, or what issues in your life do you need to deal with, cut away, burn away, cut off or burn off or separate or sever from in advance? Or maybe it's also this idea of, what do I have to start rationally or emotionally wrangling with? So as this aspect builds, I'm prepared for it, as opposed to literally being a berserker and maybe going too far, flying off the handle, going in a fit of rage. I'm not against that in its essence, but doing that has consequences, and usually those consequences are in a key relationship in your life. So um, finding ways to deal with this monster within is really the key way of dealing with Algol. um, for some people, it is finding something that's creative. I've shared what works for me, and, heavy metal is my jam in many ways, shapes, and forms. But for some people, it might just be something else. It could be, a creative outlet, an art form, or a martial art, which would be very Mars-Uranus on Algol. Whatever it is, that when you can release some pressure within, where you can blow off some steam, where you can feel strong, where you can feel powerful. And I think that is the energy of Algol, is the reclamation of power, where you feel that it's been lost. And taking back something, or having the capacity to grieve something as well. So it's very, very multi-layered as a fixed star. So as we move into July, it might be, what are you really stressed about? What are you worried about? And finding the outlet that works for you in order to grapple with that proverbial monster. So the stress is reduced, the anger is reduced, or that inner turmoil is reduced. And so, sometimes we have to just Mars it up. We have to cut it off, cut it away, or separate ourselves from it. And when we can do that consciously, then the volatility of it is kind of reduced. We lean into the more higher energies, I guess, of Uranus, which is freedom, liberation, and authenticity, as opposed to disruption, separation, and volatility. So when we can choose, and I think this is a big Taurus thing, when we can choose the change, then we're in control of it. However, if we don't choose that change, then the change chooses us, and then we can't control it anymore. And so that's the tricky part with Taurus, because it's very change averse. And so sometimes it's not until that bull that gets so fired up, it gets so agitated, and then it's relentless and unstoppable. And sometimes, that's what bulls do. It's nothing wrong with that, but it's almost like choose your poison with this particular aspect. So, what are you worried about? What action are you fearful of taking because you are worried about the outcome? And usually, the fear, the stress, the worry uh, is really your signature or your invitation. That's the action you need to take. So, whatever you're most fearful of, you've got to push through that. And this is sometimes where Algol can be really helpful because she is super, super protective. She is a star that will help ward off bad energies. It's a kind of a little bit the hamster or the evil eye. When you are within her sphere or when you're within her circle of protection, if you like, you will be protected by her. But if you ignore her or, like any woman, she is going to scorn you, right? So, there are positive and beneficial ways to work with this star. Now, in addition, as this aspect between Mars and Uranus perfects and conjoins the fixed star of Algol, the moon will be opposing that in Scorpio. So there's no escaping this one this month. There is a definite no holds bar approach. So it is a let it all out. Scorpio is the depth, it's the unseen. So it could really trigger this real unleashing of fire and ferocity. I feel that that's going to be a thing collectively. On the personal front, you might have to choose your battles a little bit. And that's why I wanted to do this video a little bit early to just kind of give you some ideas about, okay, we don't have to freak out about this. We don't have to have a whole bunch of astrological anxiety about this. And this might be about doing some things that help improve your energetic hygiene. If you are doing things for others, but you are resentful, if you are angry, if you're getting bitter about it, you're probably too far gone. But this is the authenticity piece with Uranus. If you want to say no to something or someone, you have to say no. If you're doing things for someone or you're not doing things for yourself that you know you need to do, you're going to get bitter and resentful. And then there's shame attached to that because we don't want to feel that way. And it just becomes this sort of never ending self-fulfilling prophecy of inaction. And when then there's inaction, then that's when all of this kind of rage builds up. So maybe you need to drive in your car and scream some heavy metal. Maybe you need to write a letter and just get out all of the feelings, all of the rage within. Of course, the person you are directing that letter to doesn't have to read it. It's just for your own therapeutic benefit. Maybe you just need to talk out loud in private. And so the thoughts, the ideas, the feelings in your mind don't continue to loop around, taking up rent-free space that are just like a tinderbox in your mind that will get struck as we lead into this aspect. Um, all that being said, it doesn't necessarily say that we're not going to lose our heads a little bit mid-month. But at least if we can dampen the fire somewhat, it may not be quite as, we can control it as opposed to it raging on. So I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm not. So I hope that this has maybe given you some new perspectives. But most importantly, it's Taurus. So some practical, tangible action you can take by working with these energies of Mars, Uranus, and Algol. If you're worried about it, now you know what you can do. If you are feeling stressed, feeling worried, find a release, blow off that steam. Otherwise, it's just this like powder keg of pressure and pressure and pressure. And then once that explosion happens and the destruction happens, sometimes it's too late. So if we can just take a slow, steady, persevering, taking some of the more positive energies of Taurus, we can go into this aspect mid-month a little bit more calm, a little bit more serene, a little bit more focused on authentic action as opposed to inauthentic reaction. And I think that's where Algol will be beneficial and protective as opposed to notorious and nasty. So that's it. That's what I'm going to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, I'd love to hear your comments. Do you have Algol positioned in a significant part of your birth chart? If you do, let me know. How does that play out for you? I do have Mars and Venus in Taurus, bit wide of Algol, but I feel that the energy is, it's a bit there. So we'll all have it somewhere in our birth chart, even if you do have no planets in Taurus. So let me know. Let me know if you feel that these tips are going to be helpful for you. Has this given you a new, maybe a little bit more of a positive or constructive way to deal with this aspect where may not be quite so algorithmically positive because it's not negative doom and gloom. Anyway, leave us a comment. And of course, the Golden Circle is available if you would like to learn more about July. Readings are available. And of course, I will be releasing details of my Neptune in Aries webinar, which I'll probably either do very late July or very early August. Have a good one. And I'll see you in the next video, which will be my weekly horoscopes. So see you then and have a great Mars, Uranus, and Algol conjunction. Next time, have a great week.